Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Coast College Football Pregame Show. Episode number 8 for us, week number 7 in the season. First huge game this week. We're going to talk about it a lot. It's very important to one of our co-hosts on the show. But before we get into that, we got a lot to talk about this week. We got to start with a crazy game from last night. We bring you everything on this show. It's live as soon as it happens. Our normal previews, we got our pick'ems, College Football Eliminator, more movement there. And, we're just going to give you everything you need to know before the games kick off here in a couple hours. So before we get going, I got to introduce the guys that steer the ship for me. First off, starting off out in Ohio, Mr. Cottrell Simpson, my Buckeye brother from another mother. How are you?
Doing pretty good, I got the Ducks jersey on. I'm trying to be an ally for my man Alex. I'm sure Justin's going to be in the comments as well. Being an ally for you guys today.
I'm not going to say anything, but I feel like somebody might be getting set up here. I don't know. I feel like a WWE swerve coming. But before we get to that, big game for you today, buddy. Our West Coast correspondent, the guy that locks down the left side of the country for us, Mr. I Black, Alex Elmore. How you feeling? Looks like you haven't got a lot of sleep.
Man, I was up late last night. If there's nothing I love more than offense, I was up last night watching 89 points get scored from that Stanford-Colorado game. Man, today's going to be an amazing day. I'm excited for the Ducks-Washington game. Luckily, I don't have to wait too late in the day to watch that game kick off. Then we can get that one going on here in a few hours. But, last night, man, I was up late. I know it was super late for you guys on the East Coast, probably 2 a.m. when the game racked up. But I was just watching that Stanford-Colorado game, hoping for a nice, easy nightcap. Instead, I watched Stanford score 7 straight unanswered points. I can't talk today. You can tell I'm tired. But they scored 7 straight possessions last night. And Colorado's offense was doing their best to imitate USC, and they did a pretty good job of imitating that USC defense.
So we're going to start right there. This was not a game that I don't think any of us thought we were going to have to talk about this morning. I went to bed when it was 29-0, long work week. I saw what I needed to see. Colorado pretty much went right down the field. Their first 4 possessions and scored. I thought I was going to go, 1-0 on the week. Easy peasy. Woke up this morning, some crazy text from Alex, went and checked the score. Lo and behold, Colorado blew a 29-0 lead. I didn't even have enough time to look this up. I'm going to have to figure it out at some point, but it's got to be one of the worst blown leads in the history of college football. So
Stanford's largest comeback in school history. Sorry to interrupt you.
I believe that. 29-0 is a huge mountain to climb. So before we get into our normal previews, we're going to start here. This is a big game for Colorado in the bigger sense. I think this is a game everybody assumed was going to be a win, was going to help them get bowl eligible. Keep them. This would have made them 4-2. Not that they were going to be 5-2. Yeah, not that they were going to be in the hunt for, the Pac-12 championship or anything. But this is going to go a long way to getting them towards a good bowl and get them right back on track after their 2 losses to Oregon and USC. They blew it. I don't know what else to say. You choke. I'm not trying to be, over, exaggerate or anything like that. But if you blow a 29-0 lead, you choked. I mean, that's the only way to put it. I'm not trying to come down on those kids or Dion or anybody, but I mean, that's just a reality of the matter. Yep. I only saw really the first half. Alex, I think you're gonna have to kind of probably take the lead on this because I don't know how late Cottrell stayed up. I know he's a party animal sometimes, but he's married now, so he goes to bed early. I don't know what the hell happened. I haven't seen it. Obviously, it was 29-0. They were dominating. I went to bed. Like I said, I thought I was getting a win. Thought my parlay was intact. I woke up to chaos. What happened?
I mean, plain and simple, Colorado just got careless. I mean, after halftime, they went three and out, turned the ball over on downs, gave Stanford a short field, 40-yard touchdown drive. And then they finally, on the next possession, another 3 and out. They pinned the Stanford Cardinal back on their own 3-yard line. And guess what happens? The cornerback trips and falls, 97-yard touchdown pass to the house. And that's what ultimately gave Stanford the momentum to carry on for the rest of the game. Like I said, they scored on 7 straight possessions. Colorado could not buy a touchdown or a score until late in the fourth quarter. They went up by 3, and Stanford was able to drive down the field. And they do have one of the best place kickers in the country. He was absolutely automatic. And then when it came to overtime, Colorado looked like they scored on their first possession, looked like they were going to own overtime. And then Stanford Cardinal, I forgot the player's name. He's not a very well-known guy. Obviously, Stanford's not talked about too often. Let me get his name real quick. Alec Ayomanor. I'm not sure how to say it. Sorry if I butchered that. 13 catches, 294 yards, 3 touchdowns, including the 97-yard touchdown in the third quarter. I mean, Stanford could do no wrong the second half. They honestly looked like they could beat USC with the way they were playing in that second half, honestly.
Well, I mean, USC doesn't play defense either, so maybe they can. I don't know. Yeah, listen, I mean, this is kind of a shocker to wake up to. So that puts them, so what are they, 4-3?
4-3.
4-3.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it gets interesting. They got to find 2 wins somehow. I mean, I know they have Arizona left, but like I said, I mean, that's a team you can't sleep on. They've looked better and better every week. I mean, that's going to be an interesting game. Oregon State, I don't think you can count on as a win. They have Utah left, I believe.
And they got Washington State.
Yeah, they got UCLA, Oregon State, Washington State, and then Utah, and then they got Arizona mixed in there. But yeah, for the last 4 of the 5 games are definitely against ranked opponents.
I don't think you can look at any of those games and say they're going to win. Man,
not even Arizona.
No, like I said, Arizona's look better and better every week. I think they're 2-4, but I mean they're playing people tougher now. It's a team. That's a team that's just going to continue to get better as they play.
Arizona has played everybody tough. Washington, they put up a fight against them. USC, they should have beat USC if we're being honest.
Correct. 100% correct. So I don't know. I don't know if there's a win left on that schedule. I'm not going to say no because I mean that offense is explosive and I mean they put up pretty much 40 every game, but I don't know, man. I mean that defense is just awful. Like I know we joke about
Here's the last thing. Is that they had 17 penalties for 127 yards yesterday. That's a whole drive of straight penalties that they had during the game. They cannot win games with over 100 yards of penalties.
I mean,
that's insane.
127 yards is actually pretty much 2 drives. I mean, that's at least a touchdown and a field goal. That's 10 points on the board for your opponent. That's a lot.
And I will say, like the one other thing that kind of it's just a factor of how Colorado plays football. You don't blow a 29-point lead if you can run the football. Correct. Colorado struggles running the football. And, you talk about the 3-and-outs, things like that. If you're putting the ball just on the ground and you're up 4 possessions in a game like that, Shedeur is good enough to get you, 1 first down here, 1 first down there, whenever pretty much he wants to. And I understand the offense was stalling and things like that. But if you have a good run game, there's no way that you can blow a 29-point lead. So, Prime, he's got some things to figure out there. As great as Shedeur is and, Travis Hunter and all the talent they have at receiver, you got to find a way to run the ball so you can put games like this away. I also went to bed when it was 29-0 and let the TV on. I woke up, Deion's at his press conference, and I had to wipe the crust out my eyes because it was saying 46-43 double overtime win for Stanford. I'm like, there's no way that this happened. Because, I mean, Stanford looked like, fish out of water, essentially. They looked absolutely awful in that first half. The 0 blitzes were getting home every single time. I mean, you could count on it like clockwork at that point. You knew exactly what Colorado was in. It was 3rd and 3, 3rd and 9. They were coming at you with a 0 blitz, and the quarterback had absolutely nowhere to go. And then their offense was clicking on all cylinders. Got to find a way to run the football to take care of leads like that.
Anything, man.
Something crazy.
Even if you run the ball 3 times and let the play clock run down, I mean, that'll still burn you 2.5, 3 minutes just
every
on a 3
possession.
Yeah, on every possession on a 3-and-out drive. Let alone if you get a couple first downs. I mean, it's wild, man. I mean, this is one. I mean, I think if Colorado looks back at the end of the season and they're not where they want to be or they don't make a bowl, I mean, this is going to be the one that sticks out like a sore thumb. So, we're going to move on from there. Again, it was.
I think Alex had another one last point.
Just one last point.
Ahead.
Stanford only has less than 100 yards of offense in the first half. That's how dominant Colorado was. They ended up the game with 523 yards of total offense. So that explains what the second half looked like without you even having to watch the game. You kind of have an idea.
Okay, so since we're here, as the last thing I'll bring up before we go on our previews of our recap from last week, if Colorado finds a way to beat one of those ranked teams, you beat Arizona too, of course. Like I think that has to be like a must win at this point. You find a way to beat one of the ranked teams. How would you evaluate their season? Because right now, like I feel like that loss to Stanford, they're at a point where like I know a lot of people only expect them to win 2, maybe 3 games this year, but like they're at a point for me where I almost feel like their season could be looked at as like a failure. I know they only won 1 game last year. Expectations were low, but like you come out, you beat TCU. I feel like expectations were at I thought they had the potential to go like a 8-4 or something like that. Get a decent bowl game.
See, this is where it's going to be. It's kind of a roller coaster for me. I think if we're being honest and we look back at week 1, I think Colorado came out, and I will give them credit. I think they looked a lot better, and they were obviously a lot further along than a lot of people thought. But I've said it. I've been consistent with this. I also think TCU had no business being ranked, and I think a lot of people. I think they went from cautiously optimistic to, like you said, like, oh crap, like we're going to win 8 games this year off the TCU win. And now I think if you look back at what TCU's even done since that game, they're just not a good football team. They just lost way too much from last year. So you go TCU, you have the TCU win, they win their next game, they start 2-0. And to your point, we've talked about this before. There was guys on national TV, guys that work for ESPN, work for Fox, everything. They're like, if this team wins 2 or 3 games, it's a success. And I think if you watch them the first week, you're like, all right, like I feel like that's a little bit harsh. The defense obviously is not good. But that being said, if you watch Shedeur Sanders play, because there's a lot of questions about him, like how is he going to jump from playing the HBCUs to going to a major Division I program? Kids look great. I don't think we can say anything bad about Shedeur Sanders as a whole. But you guys on TV trashing them. Like if this team wins 2-3 games, it'll be a success for Deion. So I think when they started, 3-0 before they went to Oregon, it was kind of like Cottrell said. I think a lot of the country kind of shifted and was like, all right, well, maybe if they steal a game here or there, they're going to beat Stanford, they're going to beat Arizona State. That puts them to 6 or 7. If they steal one game, they're 8, and they're probably in like a really big bowl game because of the draw of what they are. I think reality's kind of set in. I'm not going to say that withstanding what happened last night because I don't think any of us thought that was going to happen. So I think if you look at it going forward, I'll say this. I said this from the get-go. I think if they make a bowl, I think it's a huge success. I think Deion will downplay it and say internally that's not what our goals were. But I think if you to be very realistic of what that roster is and what they were really going to go up against, especially, I don't know if he could have picked a worse year to be in the Pac-12, if we're being honest. Oregon, Washington, like, you know what I mean? Like, this is a crazy up year for the Pac-12. So you factor all that in. I think if this team gets to 6 wins and you get those kids to go play in a bowl game with as down as everybody was on them and build for next year, Shedeur is going to be back. I think he's going to be back. Travis Hunter's going to be back. Yeah, I do too. And you build on that. I think you have to give Deion credit. I think that program is light years ahead of where everybody nationally thought they were going to be. I think a lot of people just got really excited because of how the season started. But I think if you take a step back, take your emotions out of it, and just look at everything on a realistic point of view, I still think a bowl game is a highly successful season for Colorado. That's my opinion.
Yeah, plain and simple. If you talk to the people in the locker room, Deion and Shedeur and Shiloh and all them, I think they're going to tell you this season was not a success because they feel like they should be up in those top echelon of teams, 1-loss, 2-loss teams, talk of college football playoff. But if you look at the grand scheme of things, I know as college football as a whole, it's a win. The fact that they're already over their win total that Vegas predicted at the beginning of the year, Colorado is always coming out of people's mouths when it comes to the college football game. And ultimately, it's growing the game. This is the first time since 2001 that Colorado has actually been relevant. So going into next year with, a full year of experience underneath their belt, I think that the future is looking fantastic for them. And over the next couple of years, I think we're going to see some good things. But I think in the locker room, this season is kind of a loss. But like I said, in the grand scheme of things, Colorado's back on the map, and they're going to be fun for years to watch as long as Deion is still there.
I mean, they're going to win the Big 12 next year.
Yeah,
like,
I don't
think it's going to be close either. So I mean,
yeah. You lose Oklahoma and Texas, and I don't think they have like a tough non-conference schedule next year. So, I mean, sky could be the limit for them next year. But, all-time Stanford collapse, I mean, I just did not have that on my bingo card last night after watching the first half.
I don't think that was on anybody's. You had that on your bingo card. We need to talk because I think you have some answers that I need for the futures. It is, and again, I'm going to pull back and like kind of get out of the vacuum of the hype. I would really find it hard to believe that you sat Deion down at the beginning of the season and say, hey, I'm talking to you from the end of 2024 season and be like, you guys make a bowl game last year and you make the college football playoff this year. I would be hard pressed to say that if Deion didn't say that was acceptable and what he was looking for, I think he'd be lying. And because I think that's realistically what they're looking for, or like what they're looking at. Yeah. So I think if you look, if the end of next year, you look at their first two seasons and that's what they do, they go from a team that a lot of people thought they were going to win 3 games. He gets into a bowl game and they make the college football playoff next year as the Big 12 champ. I don't think anybody realistically without lying would say they wouldn't look at that as a success. And if they would say that, I'd be like, you're going to take a polygraph because I think you're lying. I mean, that's and again, to Alex's point, and I've said it before, growing up, and obviously I know I'm older than you guys, but growing up, like Colorado was a great team every year. That's what I mean. Like I've seen them, like everybody's seen the Hail Mary from Cordell Stewart to Michigan in the Big House. Like that team was a national contender every year. They were 11-0 one year and played Notre Dame and lost the last week of the season. They won that. They would have went to the national championship game. They won a national championship back then. Like that team was a powerhouse program. Nobody wanted to go to Boulder and play. And it's fun that team is going to, at least for the foreseeable future, be a very good program again. So, all right. I mean, that's 20 minutes about Colorado and Stanford that I don't think we were planning on talking about. So we got to get
no one ever plans about talking about Stanford for 20 minutes. Whatever wants to do
Dan
that.
was basically on the field last night.
Yeah. So we got to get moving because we got to get done before the 12 o'clock kickoffs. I'll say this, though. I woke up this morning. This is the first weekend for me anyway, where I am. I know last week was a little bit rainy, but it was still warm. Today it's barely 50 degrees and it's raining. Today is the first day for me. It really feels like fall and football on a Saturday. I love it. So there's gonna be a lot of crappy weather games in the Northeast today with all this rain. Alex, I know it always rains in Oregon, so I don't know what's going on out there. And Cottrell,
overcast, light rain forecast, nothing too crazy today.
And Cottrell,
we've been looking.
Cottrell's just somewhere in the middle. So, but let's get back to last week. Interesting week. Had some interesting results, and we'll start with this one. I had high hopes for this game. That's all I'll say. I did. I thought Kentucky had a shot to stay in it. Gene's Georgia Bulldogs came out at home and did not disappoint. Carson Beck, I think this is kind of his first game where he, I want to say, lived up to the hype and looked like what people was hoping he really was. They ran the ball when they wanted to. They threw the ball when they wanted to. Brock Bowers is just an animal. And Kentucky just couldn't get the running game going early to stay in it. That's really the moral of the story. They tried to run Ray Davis a lot at the beginning. Georgia shut it down, put the game on Devin Leary, and I mean, you see his numbers up on the board. 2 touchdowns. They kind of came later when the game was kind of out of reach. Nothing crazy here. Sum it up, Georgia looked like the number 1 team in the country. It's the easiest way I could put it. They look like they finally lived up to it, dominated Kentucky at home to a lot of people thought was going to be a very close game, myself included. It wasn't. It was a bulldozing, to say the least. Cottrell, Georgia for real. Kentucky just lights too bright for Kentucky. Mixture of both. What do you think?
I think it was a mixture of both. I think Kentucky was in a spot, I mentioned it last week on the preview that for Kentucky to really have a shot, we all said it, that the run game would be a big factor. But I didn't think that they would be able to have success on the ground because Devin Leary doesn't provide that threat, to run against, that Georgia defense. So I think that made holes tougher for Ray Davis to come by. And like you said, Carson Beck had the best game of his Bulldogs career so far. So I think that this Georgia team really showed you, who they are, and I think this was a good game for Georgia. It was a home game, obviously, and you feel like Georgia had this in them. You hadn't seen this dominance performance from them so far, but you got to tip your cap to them. Devin Leary is a experienced quarterback over there at Kentucky, and Ray Davis had an incredible season up until this point. So you got to give credit for a good win for that Georgia team, and I'll be curious to see how they look against some of these tougher matchups coming up.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely last week was a really big opportunity for Georgia. It was the first time all season that Georgia has really come out of the gate on all cylinders, jumping out to that 14-point lead. And, they really looked good straight from the get-go. Their first 2 touchdown drives were a 75-yard drive and an 82-yard drive. Kentucky really had no answers for them, with Georgia scoring on the first 5 possessions. It was 34-7 at halftime. There's really no chance of Georgia blowing this game in the second half. They did try to run with Ray Davis, but he was not able to get that ground game going like he was against Florida the week before when he had over 200 yards. And here's just a couple numbers for you that really kind of explain this game. Kentucky had 12 first downs the entire game. Georgia had 33. Kentucky had less than 200 yards. Georgia had over 600. I mean, you can't really combat that. Georgia was just honestly vintage Georgia, and this is the best I've seen them look all year. And this is the first time I think that they truly look like a number 1 team in the country. So it's about time they really started coming around and looking like them true selves again.
Yeah, I'm reading all these comments, and I take it Justin Louder is not a Colorado fan. I don't know. I'm just going to go on a limb. But it is listen, I mean, it's a lot of, you hear a lot of things about Georgia, how, they really hadn't played anybody, or they just haven't looked convincing yet. We're getting into week 7, 8, 9 now, and I think they've looked better each and every week. I think you're going to start to see really what they are coming down the stretch here. I know they still have Florida left and Tennessee. I think you're going to see 2 impressive performances there, and if you do, then this Georgia team might, they might really have a legit shot at three-peating. I'm not going to put, everything in the basket of Kentucky here. I mean, it is Kentucky, but I thought this game was going to be closer, and I thought Kentucky could at least go in there and withstand the punch for a little bit, and they didn't. They folded quick. This game was over at halftime, and that was really the moral of the story. So we'll see how Georgia looks down the road. We'll see how Kentucky rebounds today. But on to the next game. Where are we going? Where are we going next?
Justin, send me some blenders. I've been looking to order some. They're on back order. I don't know if I got time to wait that long. They said they won't come till like December, January at this point, So it's just not even worth it. Some won't even be out here in Ohio. So
you ordered the Dion blenders?
That's what he said. He got the blenders on the way.
I have other blenders. Like I've been buying blenders for 4 or 5 years now. When they first came out, they're good sunglasses. For $50, you can't beat them. And there's a million different styles. Obviously,
Deion Sanders borrows them because of you, Shally.
Yeah,
These are actually the Shally shades.
I'm a trend.
You're originally the Shally shades.
I'm a trendsetter. I know. I understand. I called Blenders to try to sponsor the show this week. They didn't call me back though. They must be busy. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, Deion had a collapse. We got to figure out who our next spokesman's going to be.
Yeah, they're trying to get all those sunglasses out the door now before people start canceling orders. All right, so this game was wild. I don't know how to say it. Final score: LSU 49, Missouri 39. I will tell you, for the better part of 3 quarters, I thought Brian Kelly was going to go on the road and lose another game. Missouri came out of the gate hot, looked great in the first half. They were up by 10 in the first half, I believe. LSU got it to within a touchdown a couple times in the third quarter, and then the fourth quarter just took over the game, and Missouri just disappeared. I don't know what happened. Brady Cook, kind of an unknown guy, unknown kid. Cottrell's talked about him a couple times on the show. Threw a bad pick late. but overall, a good game. They ran the ball well. Jaden Daniels went bonkers in the second half. Didn't really have a great first half. LSU's defense is awful, especially for the level you come to expect from the LSU Tigers. Their defense stinks. But Jaden Daniels, they're just kind of a little bit better version of Colorado, honestly. Their offense is just so potent. They're getting away with it right now. But LSU picks up a big road win. Missouri, I think, kind of really had their chance to shine here and get a huge home win. They were ranked coming into this game. They ranked 25th. Not to be, though, for the Tigers. Alex, what did you see when you watched this game?
Yeah, I mean, as a West Coast guy, I love offense. We don't like defense over here. If you've ever watched Pac-12 games, we don't like to make stops. We just like to score. So you can imagine how much I love watching LSU games every single week because they're going to drop half 100. And last week I made the joke that the score was going to be like 56-42. Well, I was pretty dang close with that prediction with this high scoring offense in this game. 1,060 total yards, 88 points scored, and only five total punts in the whole game. LSU's defense hasn't made a meaningful stop all year, but with 34 seconds left, Major Burns was able to intercept a pass and take it back for the game-sealing touchdown. And ultimately, in the last 3 minutes of the game, they had 3 stops against Missouri's offense that really had been going up and down the field all day. They turned the ball over on downs. They intercepted the ball for a touchdown. And then obviously at the end of the game, they held them to a missed field goal that would allow them to have had an onside kick attempt to at least try to tie the game. But Jaden Daniels, I swear, man, 2 losses or not, this dude is one of the most explosive players in the country. Whether he's throwing the ball, running the ball, it does not matter. With Malik Neighbors by his side, that dude is just going to toss it up. Malik Neighbors is going to go get it. And honestly, Brady Cook, he made a fan of me last weekend, the way he battled. 411 yards, 2 touchdowns. One of those interceptions I don't really count against him. It was late in the game. He had to try to make something happen. But ultimately, this game was a really nice game. Missouri played a really solid full game for me. I'm actually a fan of Missouri now, and I'll be definitely taking a look at their games going forward this season. They're very entertaining to watch, and I expect them to eliminate somebody down the road and have a big game and knock off somebody that's going to need a win later on. So it was a great game, and like I said last week, as long as you have Jaden Daniels, you're never out of the game, and he showed it again last week.
Kutrell, how about you? You've been a guy that's kind of introduced Brady Cook to the audience, and told everybody a kid to watch out for. He's played great at the beginning of the season. Kind of a Brady Cook guy. What'd you think?
I mean, I thought that Missouri gave LSU all they could handle. It being a home game for them, I thought they would, ultimately compete very well. I mean, I think in this situation, I think they just went up against the LSU team that had more bullets in the chamber. You look at Malik Neighbors and him having that caliber game that he had, and then Jaden Daniels really. Obviously he can do it with his arm, but him having 130 yards in the rushing attack really, makes LSU go into a different mode. And when he's running the ball like that, that means he's not, throwing bad passes and things like that. He's taking what the defense gives him. And when he's doing that, that LSU team is pretty dangerous offensively. So I give Missouri credit for, sticking in there. It would have been great for them to win that kind of game. But like Alex said, I expect this Missouri team to keep fighting pretty much all year. I think that's a team that you might see them get a sneaky good bowl game towards the end of the year. Brady Cook's a guy who can sling the rock, and I don't think this is the last time we'll be talking about this Missouri team on the show.
Couldn't agree more. I think Missouri is absolutely, I agree with both of your sentiments, honestly, if I'm being completely honest. I think Missouri will make a good bowl game, and I do agree with Alex. I think somebody's going to go to Missouri late in the year, probably needing a big win or some kind of good outcome there to maybe hop into a bigger bowl game or something like that, and they're probably going to take take an L in Columbia. So they're a good football team. We talked about it. I think a lot of people had high hopes for this game. They almost completely shook up the college football world last year. They had Georgia on the ropes for 3.5 quarters of a football game last year. Not the easiest place to play. I mean, you talk about the SEC, environments, the Swamp, Tuscaloosa, Georgia. You don't bring up Missouri a lot, but a lot of teams go there and struggle. They don't play well. They don't get their best games out of their teams when they go to Missouri. So something to watch for down the stretch. I think Alex and Cottrell are both 100% correct. So we'll see how Missouri fares the rest of the year, and LSU will stay on the roller coaster with them. Where are we going next, boys? All right. Notre Dame. Where do we start?
I think the easiest place to start is, you look at the numbers here. You look at Audric Estime's numbers. 10 carries is not enough for that kid. I get it. He was struggling. He only had 20 yards. Alex says it's a career low for him with at least 5 carries. And, I 100% understand that. But Sam Hartman turned the ball over like crazy in this game. He had 3 picks. I just feel like you got to establish the run more. I got to give Louisville all the credit in the world. I called their offense vanilla last week. I thought they'd struggle a little bit more against this Notre Dame defense. And, ultimately they didn't. They couldn't stop the run. And, they got beat. So, I for me, that's where I start. The running game both ways.
So, I'm not going to say me and Cottrell told you so, but I'm going to say we told you so. We literally talked about this last week, about them not using him enough. And, just to a little bit of a degree, we understood it, trying to keep him fresh, blah, blah, blah. That being said, you already have a loss coming into this game. You cannot lose this football game. He is your best offensive player by a mile. And you let him touch the ball 10 times in a game that you go on the road and get smoked 10 times. Sorry, that's me. That's a Marcus Freeman problem. That's got to be somewhere along the lines. He's got to stand up and be like, we got to start running the ball. We have to get the ball in our best players' hands more than 10 times. I also think, I think it's been a crazy couple weeks for Notre Dame. I will say this: Notre Dame never has an easy schedule. It's one thing I will give them credit for. And I think they just ran out of gas. I think if you watch the fourth quarter of that game, it looked like the weight of the world kind of finally fell off their shoulders, and they couldn't do it anymore. They had the game at home against Ohio State, which slipped right through their fingers, literally the last play of the game. They went and rallied and beat Duke last week with a minute to go. I think the pressure of it all and the stress of it all finally caught up to them. Cottrell mentioned the defense. The defense fell apart the last 8 minutes of the game. Sam Hartman threw another late pick, really bad pick late in the game. Louisville went down and scored again. That was pretty much it. This game was over with 8-9 minutes to go. They did, Notre Dame tacked on another touchdown to get it to 20, but we're going to talk about them again in a couple minutes. But they have an interesting course going forward. They have 2 losses. Their season's over in regards to any kind of college football playoff berth, and they got a huge one this week. They're back at home. I'm very curious to see how they rally. It's going to be an interesting game. A lot of people, I think if you look at it from a hot seat point of view, I don't know where Marcus Freeman really stands. Notre Dame has notoriously been quick to pull the trigger sometimes. They lose this. I don't know how well a 4 or 5 loss season is gonna land in Notre Dame. And they have enough guys, they have enough opponents on the schedule left that's a reality if they don't start playing better. So to Cottrell's other point, you got to give Louisville credit. Louisville came out at home, ran the ball. I didn't think Louisville's defense was that good. That to me was what stood out. That was the most surprising part to me. Jack Plummer is another guy, a quarterback that not a household name, very good football player, had a great game. And I think Louisville's defense really showed up, showed out, and that was kind of the moral of the story. They made Notre Dame's offense look very, if anybody's offense in this game looked vanilla, it was Notre Dame's. Sam Hartman kind of had some careless interceptions, and that's how you lose by 13 on the road. So, Alex, first impressions, final thoughts. What do you think?
Last week, and I'm going to quote myself here because I said this. And whenever I get something right, isn't too often, I like to bring it back up. I said 2 weeks ago, Jawar Jordan had 16 carries for 32 yards. He's got to have a big bounce back game if they have any chance against Notre Dame. I don't know if you guys remember me saying that. But I talked about Jawar Jordan, and that boy, he showed out 21 carries, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns. If you told me that Louisville was going to win this game by 2 touchdowns and that Jack Plummer would only throw for less than 150 yards, I would say you were crazy. Because I thought Jack Plummer would be the reason that these guys were able to take over and win the game. The Notre Dame's secondary was able to do exactly what I also said, which was eliminate Jamari Thrash. Holding him to 75 yards is no small task, and only 8 receptions. He is their main go-to receiver. So Notre Dame's defense, in the secondary, they did quite well. But Jawar Jordan, he was running all over them the entire game. And, Shally, you had mentioned about, and Cottrell, you had mentioned about Audric Estime only getting 10 carries. Fun fact, I don't know if you guys know this, Audric Estime didn't get his first carry of the game until 45 seconds left in the first quarter. That was their third possession of the game, and that was his first carry. He barely got 1 carry in the first quarter. That's ridiculous. He's their best offensive weapon. They utilized the freshman running back a couple early handoffs. But why are you not giving Estime the ball? You've been having trouble moving the ball. You scored 17.5 points over the last 2 games previously. Estime is your workhorse. He's your go-to. Let him take you to the promised land. Like you said, Marcus Freeman is not making good coaching decisions. All right, and like I also said last week, Hartman is not looking like he did the first 3 weeks of the year. You throw a good defense in front of him, and he's not making great decisions. What is that? Over the last 3 games, he has, 5 turnovers. He's caused 5 turnovers to 2 touchdowns he's created. That is not a Heisman caliber quarterback. That is not a college football playoff caliber quarterback. And Louisville came out swinging with an interception on a really underthrown ball from him in that first drive. If you watch that replay, he literally dropped it right into the cornerback's hands, which then Louisville was able to turn around and get a 9-yard touchdown pass to Jamari Thrash. And then Notre Dame has answered back midway through the second quarter, taking it 7-7 at halftime. At that point, I still thought Notre Dame had the game won. I thought their defense was going to pull out another close game. But it felt like when momentum really shifted when Jawar Jordan took off for his 45-yard touchdown run in the third quarter. Dude, I don't even think he was touched past the line of scrimmage. He closed the door with his 21-yard touchdown run later in the game. I mean, Louisville had 5 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, and 5 turnovers. I'm sorry, Notre Dame, but you're not going to beat an undefeated team like Louisville with 5 turnovers. I'm sorry, but that's just not the recipe to win. And like I said, to me, the biggest takeaway is they need to run the ball. I mean, like I said, Audric Estime is still one of the top 10 in the country in rushing yards per game, and you only gave him 20 yards and 10 carries. Something's got to change, and hopefully they'll grasp that against USC's terrible run defense this week.
I agree. I mean, it's gonna. They got a big game tonight, so like I said, I'm very curious to see how they rebound and how they respond. It's probably not been the best week of practices or been the best week on campus for those kids. So, they got a big one tonight. They got Caleb Williams and company coming to town, so we will see what happens. Where we go next? Maryland, Ohio State. This is a tale of 2 halves. I'm not going to talk too much about this one. I will let our resident Ohio State expert talk about this, but this was, I would say at halftime, I would say Cottrell's worry meter might have been a little higher than he would like to admit. And then the second half happened and it probably disappeared. But Cottrell, I will let you go first on this one and break it down.
No. Let me go first real quick, okay? Because I got to get this in before Cottrell tears me apart. All right, last week I was talking a lot of shit. All right, and in the group chat I was talking a lot of shit too. So let me first and foremost say I apologize about saying Maryland was going to cover the 19.5-point spread. I think losing by 20 is the ultimate punch to the face. But anyway, Cottrell, I know you got a lot to say. Let me get this out of the way first, and I'll let you have your 5 minutes because you definitely deserved it. The Maryland, I think you guys can definitely agree with me, though. Maryland is a lot better than this 20-point difference that the score ended up being. Maryland played fantastic the first half. I mean, like I said, it was 10-10 at halftime. Ultimately, Maryland was up 10-0 at one point until Talua threw a pick 6 in their own end to make it 10-7. And I think that really kind of shifted the momentum. And funny thing is that was the first play I watched when I turned on the game. I turned it on, interception, touchdown. I should have turned the game on. It was bad luck from then on out. But honestly, the game was fantastic. I was pretty proud with how Maryland fought. I thought the game would be a lot closer, but Ohio State just kept adding on one more and one more and one more. And that Marvin Harrison Jr., man, he had a bounce back game for the ages. They were struggling, and literally was like, just throw it up there somewhere. Marvin Harrison Jr. will come down with it, and he did. He looked fantastic. Also, Control, if you could give us some more info on what was up with the whole Trayvon Henderson situation, and is he out for a long period of time?
Apparently, he's, as far as I know, I think he's playing today. They said he got hurt in the Notre Dame game. I don't fully believe that because he finished that game and then they went into a bye week. I feel like he got hurt at practice. They just didn't want to say that because probably, a lot of people would be thinking, how do you get hurt in practice during a bye week? Like, how hard are you guys really going during practice during that bye week? And so I feel like, Trayvon has obviously had his history of injuries and things like that. And I feel like they were just kind of being a little bit more cautious because they probably felt like they could beat Maryland without him. And, if he does get held out today, I think that they're looking more so bigger picture and making sure that their guys are ready to go for next week against Penn State. Because I know they already ruled out Emeka for today as well. He had a little nagging ankle injury as well. So I think they're more so focused on making sure they can get the guys on the field for Penn State. But I was very surprised to see Trayvon not playing because no one had reported that pretty much all week through Ohio State.
Yeah, and that's kind of all my points, and so it's all you guys now.
I'm just going to add one thing. And it kind of got to just to piggyback off what Alex said. I think Maryland is I don't think they're obviously the upper echelon of the Big Ten. I don't think they're Ohio State, Michigan, or even Penn State for that matter. I think what they are consistently now, though, is I think they've gotten, and I'm going to say this withstanding the last two seasons, but I think they're on that like Wisconsin, Michigan State, Iowa. I think they're on that level now. I think Mike Locksley has done a really good job of going to Maryland and building that program up and keeping it consistent. And he's been able to recruit. Listen, believe it or not, man, the Baltimore area, like Baltimore, DC, Virginia, that whole area, there's a lot of good football players that come out of there. And he's convinced a bunch of them to stay home and go to Maryland, which is a great school. You got to give Mike Locksley credit. I mean, I think he's building that program the right way from the ground up. It's one of those situations where I don't think he'll leave. I mean, he's in the Big Ten. I don't think there's that many better options for him to go somewhere else. So I hope he could stay there for another 4 or 5 years and really see what Maryland is. But I think they've taken that step up to, if you look at where they were when they came into the conference, I mean, they had 1 or 2 wins a season. Yep. They're an 8-win football team every season now, and that's not easy to do in college football. I don't think people realize that. Like, I think you look at the Alabamas and Georgias and Ohio States, all those kind of schools that win 9, 10, 11 games every year. They're the exception to the rule, though. You look across the country and all the other conferences, most of the teams do not win 8 games, and that's pretty much where Maryland is now. So I just want to give them credit. I'll give it back to Cottrell now so we can talk about his boys. Flipping the switch in the second half here and kind of looking like Ohio State should. So, Cottrell, take it away. Get your gloating in. Just don't go too long because, we got other games to talk about.
So, I mean, I think the one thing that was kind of surprising for me was during that first half, Ohio State's offense obviously wasn't clicking. Seemed like couldn't get a first down to save their life. And, without Trayvon Henderson there, it takes away the explosive plays in the run game. Chip's obviously, decent runner. He runs hard, things like that, but he's not that explosive guy. And so when McCord's not taking care of business in the passing game, usually when you can lean on a guy like Trayvon Henderson, throw him a screen, get him out in space, you can get some extra yards, for that offense and start to gain a rhythm. On the flip side of things, I know Maryland was up 10-0, but that Maryland offense never looked like, well, the first drive when they went down and scored a touchdown, they looked great. Don't get me wrong. But outside of that, then the Maryland offense didn't look as, explosive as kind of I was expecting them to. Now, I know Ohio State, their defense their motto has been not to give up the explosive plays and things like that. But I thought for Maryland to have a shot in this one, I thought it'd be their offense leading the way and they'd go blow for blow with Ohio State. Not, defensively, they were holding it down. And, if Talia doesn't throw that pick six, they probably go into halftime with a 10-3 lead, maybe even more. So I was not expecting that Maryland defense to look the way that they did, but definitely want to give credit to Ohio State for bouncing back in that second half. Kyle McCord, I feel like I have this love-hate relationship with him at this point. he's a guy who, you know, it seems like sometimes he waits too long to throw the ball and his pocket awareness is a little bit low. But then at other times, it's like he throws these strikes to Micah and Marvin. And I just feel like it's not hard to get the ball in those guys' hands. Just throw it to them, let them do the work, and go from there. But I think this is a good win for them. You know, a little bit of adversity, and I think this could be one that helps them down the road in some of these tougher games like Penn State next week. And, of course, you know, end of the season matchup with a team like Michigan. So I'm glad they were able to gut it out and ultimately take care of business at home.
Yes, I mean, that's going to be one of the big ones next week. It's probably the biggest one, honestly. I mean, I don't think there's a bigger game next week. You know, we're getting into the part of the season where we're going to start seeing huge matchups. So that's going to be exciting because I think a lot of people, you know, I've seen Ohio State against a really good team in Notre Dame. You know, I know they have 2 losses, but I mean, that was a physical, you know, very well played football game. I haven't seen Penn State play anybody yet. I think there's a lot of hype and there's a lot of hope coming out of, you know, Happy Valley that, you know, they can go into Ohio State and win a game. They can beat Michigan at home. I think we're going to find out a lot about both teams next week, if I'm being honest. I feel very strongly about that game next week. Obviously, you know, we'll talk about it more next week, but I just love college football season. We're getting to the best part of the year, in my opinion. So I think we got one game left, and it was the big one, unless I'm missing one. All right, here we go. I'm not going to say I told you so, but this rivalry always has upsets. And it's not a huge upset. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't Oklahoma to come in at like 3-3 and unranked. They were ranked 15th, I think, and undefeated. Dylan Gabriel's been a stud. We've talked about him, you know, numerous times on the show. But that being said, you know, I still think I hate to say it, coming out of this game, you know, barring the result of it, I still think Texas is the better football team. But when you play rivalries, these type of things happen. That's what makes rivalries great. I think Oklahoma had a big chip on their shoulder from the 49-0 drubbing last year. I watched a little bit of the preview show, and a lot of people thought Steve Sarkisian kind of rubbed it in their faces last year, kind of tried to score, you know, with not a lot of time left. Obviously, the game was, you know, 40-something to nothing. You know, cue the Michael Jordan meme. They took it personally. And, you know, got to play the game on the field. And Oklahoma outplayed them. In the bigger moments of the game, I thought Oklahoma was better. Again, I think Dylan Gabriel had a masterful game. Quinn Ewers played well. 2 interceptions. One was really bad, really not good timing. But you gotta give the Oklahoma kids credit. Brett Venables, you know, has made that defense take, you know, huge steps of improvement from where they were last year. Still not great, but you know, they're legit contenders now. I mean, I hate to say it. I think we were kind of all riding Texas into the college football playoff. Like they were maybe the most solidified one of the top 4 in there because we thought they were just going to run away with the Big 12. That's not the case now. If Oklahoma doesn't slip up anywhere, they're going to have to play them again, and they've already proven they can beat them. So I don't know. This is maybe a little bit of a wake-up call for Texas. We'll see how the rest of the year plays out. But Oklahoma, on a huge stage, went out and played better football. Like I said, I think they were better in the bigger moments. Come out with a win. Last guaranteed showdown in the Red River rivalry. What'd you guys think?
I mean, honestly, Oklahoma better hope they don't see Texas again because it took Texas's worst game of the year for them to get that 4-point victory. I mean, Quinn Ewers, Cottrell, you've been really high on him all year. I've been starting to come around on him, but realistically, are we ever going to see him this season again throw two interceptions and have a fumble turnover? I don't think so. I think honestly, this was his worst game of the season, a huge wake-up call. Dylan Gabriel had a career game, and I don't know if he's going to be able to put up those type of numbers 2 times in a row. He had no support rushing the ball. Taway Walker only had 46 yards. Yes, he had 2 touchdowns, but most of that was because of Dylan Gabriel getting them into good field position. Like I said, Quinn Ewers is not going to have a game like this the rest of the season, so let's get that out of the way. And like I said, Oklahoma does not want to see Texas a second time. But, you know, like I said, Oklahoma came out, smacked Texas in the mouth. He got that first interception on the second play of the game, which led to that 9-yard touchdown run. And it was kind of back and forth from then on, 20-17 at half. And when Texas hit that go-ahead field goal with 1:17 left, I thought, boom, done, Texas, done. Cottrell's going to be going crazy next week about how – well, actually, Cottrell, you picked Oklahoma to win this game, so never mind. You were actually you were actually on the right side of history. But, in just 4 plays, Oklahoma was able to get into Texas's red zone. And Anderson, with 15 seconds up, Anderson caught the game-winning touchdown pass. And here's the two main statistics that really stand out for me. I've kind of already mentioned them. Ewers turning the ball over 3 different times, not expecting that to ever happen again this season. And Texas had 90 penalty yards, including a pass interference on the last drive to get Oklahoma into the red area, into a first and goal situation, which ultimately led to them winning the game. So I need Texas to clean a few things up. Their season is not over. Oklahoma was a very top-class opponent. And I see Oklahoma kind of dominating the rest of their schedule. They don't really have another really tough match the rest of the year from what I remember. So if Texas and Oklahoma see each other again, I can't wait for that, and I think the results will be different.
Yeah, and I said it last week. Like I just feel like it's so tough to go undefeated in a season, and Oklahoma has been sitting thinking about this loss for a whole year at this point. Obviously, Dillon Gabriel didn't play last year either. And so I do feel like they kind of took that personal. You saw that with Dillon Gabriel, putting the team on his back. And I think the one other thing that no one's going to bring up here, but I love bringing it up because I hate it. I hate it every time I see it. Cowardly coaching will never win you football games. Steve Sarkisian, you got Quinn Ewers at your quarterback, and you decide to run the ball on 3rd down, settle for a field goal. And I get it. You go up 3, it's a minute left. You want your defense to take care of business. If it were me, I have Quinn Ewers on my side. I am trying to make it where Oklahoma doesn't touch the football again. And I'm almost in a spot where, if you throw the ball and it doesn't work, depending on if you gain any yards or whatnot, I might even be inclined to go for it there. Dillon Gabriel had that Oklahoma offense humming. I trust my guys offensively. I think Quinn Ewers, I've said it time and time again, I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the country. And for Sarkisian to take the ball out of his hands, run the ball on 3rd down, it's cowardly, and that doesn't win you football games. I said it last week when we were talking about Dabo taking the field goal, taking the easy way out there. I just hate it in that situation because scared money makes no money. So
yes, sir.
Need Sark to own up on that. Quinn Ewers did have 3 turnovers in that one, but this was still a winnable football game for that Texas team. And, to Alex's point, I do think that, it took Quinn Ewers' worst game. It took, some pretty bad turnovers for Oklahoma to win this game. If they see each other again, I still think Texas will win that game and win the Big 12 off of that game. But I just hate that Sark, potentially ruined this Texas season off of just cowardly coaching with one of the best quarterbacks in the country.
Control, I got a question for you, actually, Bill, before you take over. You have Quinn Ewers pretty high up on your Heisman list. Do you think this game with the loss to Oklahoma and the 3 turnovers, do you think that significantly hurts his Heisman chances this year?
Absolutely. It definitely takes him down a notch. The 346 yards, I think that's still numbers-wise, he's still going to be in contention. But at this point, I almost feel like people forgot that he beat Alabama. Like you're only as good as, what those last couple games show you. And so, you have the matchup that we're going to be talking about here soon with Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. Like one of those guys is going to come out victorious. And essentially, Quinn Ewers is going to be an afterthought. They don't have any other marquee matchups this season. Yeah, he may put up some big numbers, but Oregon is still going to have, 3 or 4 still huge games left on their schedule. Washington still got some big games left on their schedule as well. And then even, some of the other quarterbacks, Drake May is quietly having a phenomenal season. And if that number for Carolina still stays at 0, like I think he's a name that could be thrown in the mix later on. So I just think Quinn Ewers at this point, like this was the worst game to have those 3 turnovers and the worst game for Texas to lose, because I just don't think he has enough time to make up that ground against some of the opponents that Texas has left.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think depending on how that game goes the afternoon, I think if, one team wins versus the other team winning, I think it brings Penix Jr. back to the field a little bit, depending on how he plays. But to your point, I mean, I think the Alabama game was huge, but I think Alabama's sitting there with, not being a true Alabama team kind of hurts them a little bit as well. So, but I mean, we'll see. I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, we're barely halfway through the season. There's a lot of football left to be played. So, I think Texas more than anything needs to worry about winning, and getting back on track, because they don't have any room for error now. So, speaking of that, college football eliminator. Let's go. Lots of here we go. All right. Notre Dame gone. They joined LSU, Texas A&M, and Clemson. Duke still hanging by a thread. Alabama still hanging by a thread. The Longhorns have joined the pretender side after their loss against Oklahoma.
Notice that TCU is no longer here. They haven't even deserved to be pretenders anymore.
No, they're gone. We had to make
Get them out the club.
We had to make room. Somebody had to go.
They got 2 X's on the back of their hands. They're in the Uber on the way home.
That's right, Uber X. Left side, it's starting to dwindle down here. USC, huge game tonight. Washington, Oregon. We're going to talk about it shortly. Georgia will probably be okay this week. Oklahoma should be okay this week. Louisville, I think, has a trickier game than a lot of people would like to admit.
Facts.
Coming off the big game. I know Pitt's down a little bit this year, but Pat Narduzzi at home, he could give them anything they want. Ohio State should be
People
fine.
are picking Pitt to finish in the top 5. So, I mean, Pitt at the beginning of the year, Pitt had high hopes.
Yeah.
So who knows who could show up tonight?
Ohio State should be fine. Michigan should be fine. North Carolina, we're going to talk about in a minute. Tricky game. Penn State's playing nobody. And Florida State, I don't want to say as a tricky game, but rumor has it, I believe that Campbell's not going to play. So that, I think it's a little bit more intriguing, but Florida State should be fine. But we're going to at least have 2 of these teams from the contender side move next week. Or no, at least one. Sorry, at least one. But what do you guys think? Who keeps on hanging on, and is there anybody that we're not talking about that could be on here?
I mean, realistically, I think we got everybody that is a realistic contender, on the list right now. Personally, I would like to eliminate that Miami logo and just put Mario Cristobal's face right there, because he's the only reason they're on the pretender side. So I feel like his team should be on the contender side, but his face should be on the pretenders. So they got a little bit of ways to make up. But no, I'm pretty happy with this list here. I'm excited to see the W move over to the right today. But other than that, I think our list is pretty spot on.
We're gonna talk about that debacle in a second. So I don't want anybody to jump in, because I know Cottrell. I mean, I'm pretty sure all 3 of us have strong opinions on it. So we'll get into that.
I love it.
We'll get into that in a minute. I know you do for other reasons, but from an me and Cottrell having no emotional connection to that game, just strictly from a sports journalistic standpoint, it was wild, but. The U is on that side.
He's done it before.
I know. We'll get to it in a minute.
We'll talk about it.
So again, this is going to get interesting. I mean, we're to stay on the left is going to start getting harder and harder. And then next week we've already talked about it. Ohio State and Penn State play next weekend, so one of them is going to move to the right. It's going to get sparse over there. There's going to be a lot of room to move around and new room for activities for the teams on the left soon.
You got Duke and Florida State next week as well. That's going to be a game where somebody's either getting an X or getting moved. So maybe Duke and Florida State do a little switcheroo.
Ooh, the old switcheroo.
Yeah, So I'm definitely, excited about this time of year. And I will say the one, I don't want to say team or, I don't think anyone's necessarily getting left out here. But I think the Pac-12, they just have so many teams right now that are performing very well. And I think there are teams in the Pac-12 that can play their way onto the contender side. Like Oregon State could easily, beat a team they're not supposed to beat, go over to the contender side. UCLA, beat a team they're not supposed to beat, go over to the contender side. Like Pac-12 is so wide open right now. Obviously, Oregon, USC, and Washington have been the class of the Pac-12, but playing these teams week in and week out, these are some tough games. And you see how Notre Dame falters to Louisville in in that stretch of their tough four game stretch. I think with these Pac-12 teams, like anything could really happen at this point. I'm sure Alex doesn't want to hear that. He wants to hear Oregon's just going to dominate the rest of the way through. But that Pac-12 is a lot tougher than I was expecting it to be. And I think with it just being as competitive as they are, some of these teams have the ability to play their way right onto this contender side of things.
I think the crazy thing about the Pac-12 is to me, if I'm a Pac-12 fan, it's scary at the same time. I think there is so many good teams in the Pac-12. I still think there's a better than not chance that there's possibly a Pac-12 champion with 2 losses. And if that happens, I don't know if they get in. And that is kind of what scared me looking at all these teams' schedule at the beginning. I think you realistically need one of these teams to kind of run the table to guarantee they get in, because they all got to play each other down the stretch. Like we get Washington, Oregon later today. You got USC, Utah, Oregon State, all these other teams waiting in the wing that all these teams got to play. And if one of them can get through it undefeated, they might have a shot at being the number 1 seed, depending on how Georgia and Michigan and/or Ohio State look down the stretch. But it's crazy. I mean, I think that's the carrot that's dangling out there that a lot of people don't want to acknowledge or even look at. But I think there's a shot that their schedules are so tough the last month of the season. Just like Cottrell said, some of these teams have crazy 3 or 4 week stretches where they're gonna play 2 out of 3 on the road against top 15 teams. It's a lot, man. It's a lot, and it's hard to get through. I mean, and I will tell you this: whoever comes out of the Pac-12, if they get to the college football playoff, there will be no denying if they're battle tested. There'll be no denying if that team can play in big time games. But can somebody get there with 0-1 losses? That is the question for me. Because if they don't, I don't know if they get in, and then that's where it gets super tricky for me. But again, we're 2 months away from that, and a lot of football to be played in between. But it kind of jumps on the back of Cottrell's point, because some of these teams from the right can theoretically play their way back to the left. And if they start doing that, and then, teams to the left keep taking losses, it gets very interesting. Pac-12 is just an absolute murderer's row this year. There's no other way to say it. I mean, I think you look at the Big Ten, I think the best 3 teams in that entire conference are on the left side right now, but they all have to play each other. And I don't think anybody from the West matters. I think whoever comes out of the East wins the Big Ten and goes to the college football playoff. I've been pretty, steadfast about that from the get-go, just like Cottrell. One of those 3 teams is going to separate themselves, maybe go undefeated or only have 1 loss, but I think that'll be enough. Pac-12 is brutal, man. It's just brutal. But we'll see how it goes. A lot of football left. A couple big games today, and I think it's time to get into them. I don't know about you guys. I'm ready to go.
Let's do it.
Upset alert?
We do upset alert. Let's do upset alert, because I'll talk about one of the teams that's on there. It's not a huge. I mean, it'll be a big upset. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they're home, and they're hanging by a thread on the right side of that, and that's Tennessee. I think, I hate to say it. I mean, I think Texas A&M has looked better since Connor Wigman got hurt, and that's weird to say, but I think they've looked better offensively. I think Alabama went in there and I think beat them up defensively, which I didn't see coming, especially with Jalen Milroe, but he played a little bit better. And Alabama's defense is still Alabama's defense. That's the one thing we all knew was going to happen. That defense was going to start looking better each and every week, and they're starting to. Nick Saban always coaches the defense up. That is a staple of Alabama. That defense will continue to get better by the end of the year. It's a matter of can Milroe hang in there and not have them absorb another loss. But I got Tennessee. I think Texas A&M on a rebound. Jimbo's one of those guys. I feel like he loses all the big games at home, has a better shot at winning them on the road for some reason. I don't know why that is. I don't know if he coaches different or if his mentality to approach the game is different. His teams always seem to play better in big games when they're away from home. I think Tennessee is still a little bit of fool's gold for me. So I got Tennessee on upset alert with Texas A&M coming to town today.
Nice.
All right.
And I will say, I'll say for me, it's one of my picks. I know my picks are already out there from Wednesday. Team I got on upset alert this week is Louisville. Bill mentioned it earlier. Pat Narduzzi is a great coach over there, and I fully understand that Pitt isn't having the year that a lot of people were expecting them to have. But I think this Louisville team they're riding on an extreme high right now. And, I think this is a game they're primed for the upset. You get your biggest win of the season last week at home, and now you got to go up against this Pitt team who a lot of people, fully aren't expecting you to just fully expecting Louisville to take care of business, and it shouldn't be a close game, things like that. Not necessarily saying I think Louisville loses, but that 7.5 is real enticing to me, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if this is a game that Louisville drops.
I'm with you on that one.
Right.
I think off a huge victory, Pitt's the last place I'd want to go right now, especially a team that's kind of licking their wounds as it is. So I agree. I love that one.
All right, and then we're going to take it out and talk about a team we haven't talked about too much this year. Bill nailed their game last week. I'm going on upset alert this week. I'm going Air Force Academy. They are 11.5 point favorites against Wyoming. Wyoming is 5-1, and as we've seen all season long, they've been able to compete with anybody. Air Force pretty much primarily just runs the ball, averaging over 300 yards on the ground. However, Wyoming's defensive front has 19 sacks this year and is getting great penetration. Even held Jonathan Brooks to his lowest total of the season. And I do think Wyoming is going to come into Air Force Academy, take care of business, and maybe we'll see them with a number next to their name next week.
As quiet as it's kept, Air Force is having a phenomenal season, and they're low-key in the hunt for New Year's 6 game.
New Year's 6.
330 yards rushing per game. That is literally Navy-type numbers. Like I expect that type of offense ran out of Navy.
The only thing I will say about Wyoming, and this is going to be the difference this week, all their big games, minus the Texas game, which Texas scored 21 points in like 7 minutes and to pull away win that game. All their other big games this year have been at home. So that is, going to Laramie, playing the Wild Cowboys. Their fans are crazy. I mean, 3 feet of snow in the stands. They won't have shirts on. They have the whole thing going on up there. They got to go to Air Force today. I don't hate the pick. I'm not even gonna lie. I think there's a good shot they can go in there and win. I also think Air Force, pun intended, has kind of flown under the radar this year. I do think they're in line for the group of 5 to have the representation in the New Year's 6 Bowl. So that's a big game. That's a big game for both teams because whoever wins that, is going to jump. They're going to compete against Fresno State and a couple other teams that are left, for that spot to go play on New Year's Day. So that's a bigger low key game being played later this afternoon.
It is, and I was kind of just looking at Air Force's schedule the rest of the way. They got a game. They got to travel to Colorado State. And then they got the end of the year, they go up against Boise State. But outside of that, they got
Colorado State stinks.
They do, but I'm just traveling to Colorado State. They've had the big game against.
Where's the Boise game?
It's at Boise.
See, that's a tough game.
That will blue turf to end the year.
That will be
day after Thanksgiving.
They'll have to earn that game, so that'll be a good game.
Yeah, so
we'll probably talk about that game actually.
You get through that though, that's a 12-0 Air Force team, and
teams
who knows what shakes out.
Yeah, teams don't play well against the option stuff, man. We see it all the time. There's only a few teams that run it, so it's hard to emulate in practice, and you got guys running the wrong direction for 3 seconds, and then the guys going the other way with the football. A lot happens. Air Force is always tough. Again, not the easiest place to go play. Their stadium's on the side of a mountain. So I mean, it's not that Wyoming's necessarily going to be intimidated going in there, but it'll be that if they win today, I mean, that Boise State game and Boise versus Air Force, if they remain that will be, we'll preview that game come Thanksgiving week for sure.
See, my biggest issue with Air Force is just that I'm not a huge fan of teams that are one-dimensional. I mean, which they really are. I mean, they're only averaging, 82 yards passing a game. I mean, you kind of know exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Kind of just like I mentioned Navy earlier, very similar option style offenses. It really works for them. But if you can get somehow, like I said, Sam Houston State held Air Force to 13 points earlier in the season. That team is 0-6. Okay. So clearly, if they don't have the ball running early, if Wyoming can get up a couple scores in the first half, I don't think Air Force has that offense that's going to be able to come back down 2 scores. So that's why I'm kind of leaning towards Wyoming today, and we'll see what happens.
I like it.
All right, so let's get into the previews. Where we want to start? I know what's going last. All right, here we go. We're gonna start with the Pac-12. Interesting game. UCLA Bruins traveling to Oregon State Beavers. Corvallis, wild place to play. Students and the fans are right on top of you on that stadium. It's going to be loud. It's weird to say, but I mean, this game has implications. I mean, I don't know how else you want to cut it. I think, like I said, we literally just talked about this. Rank versus rank. All these games are going to matter coming down the stretch for all these teams. I think UCLA is a little bit ahead of where everybody thought they were going to be this year with what they lost last year in Charbonnet and DTR and it's or DRT, sorry. And Dante Moore has looked really good. We talked about, me and Cottrell talked about this game on Wednesday a little bit. I did bring up the point his splits are a little bit better home versus away, and Cottrell kind of corrected me because he's rude and didn't appreciate it. But no, it was he does play better at home, but I think most people do. They just weren't as drastic as I thought they were. But again, we're going to see. I mean, the one reason I'll say it this year, I think the one big game he had away from home, he did not look good. But I think that was a couple weeks ago, and he's looked better each and every week. DJU, that running attack, Oregon State at home. I'm leaning Oregon State here. I think UCLA's defense is kind of the unheralded, hero of that team. I think they have a very good defense that nobody's talking about. That being said, I think DJU at home is going to be able to control the ball a little bit. I think if he has a good game, doesn't turn the ball over, I think Oregon State wins a tight one at home. And I think it's lower scoring. I think you're looking like 21-16, 20-17, something like that. I think this is a very good football game, though. Cottrell, I'm going to let Alex go first on this one because, the Pac-12. Self-proclaimed Pac-12 expert, whatever. But we will we'll let him go first.
For the record, I never proclaimed that. I was given that title by the people. Okay,
I was
voted that.
The people's champ. Got it. But now he's the Rock. Great.
But I can say, Justin over there in the comments, he is right. I am also agreeing with the score being a little bit lighter than people are predicting. But UCLA's defense is absolutely nasty. They have not allowed an opponent to score over 17 points this season, averaging 12.2 points per game allowed with the defense. Oregon State's averaging 205 rushing yards per game, but UCLA is only averaging 64 allowed per game, which should force DJU to throw more, and that definitely plays into UCLA's hands when they have a secondary that already has 8 interceptions this season. And Damian Martinez, for Oregon State, he's the player to watch for me today. He hasn't gone over 100 yards in 3 straight games, and before that, he had gone over 100 yards in 9 straight. So lately, they've been kind of sharing the ball a little bit more with the other running backs. He hasn't been as dominant. I'm not saying he hasn't been dominant, but he hasn't been putting up the numbers that we have seen earlier in the season. And Research Stadium is a tough place to play. But Chip Kelly, he was at Oregon for a lot of years, and he has a lot of experience playing in that stadium, has a lot of big wins in that stadium. So I expect him to run to test that Oregon State run defense that allowed 241 yards or 7.3 yards per carry last week to a very subpar Cal team. I expect UCLA to kind of run the ball down their throat. UCLA themselves is averaging 200 yards per game. And I think that's ultimately going to be what's going to be the difference. I have UCLA covering the 3.5 point spread against Oregon State. Like I said, I have this game as a much lower scoring game, and it should be a good one to watch. But I do have UCLA covering the 3.5 points.
Alex, we are on the same page, my guy. So UCLA, I think they go to Corvallis. They take care of business. I like Dante Moore a lot. Dante Moore is a kid that's a true freshman at this point. He's got some of the higher pressure games already under his belt. I know he didn't look great going to Utah. Corvallis isn't quite Utah, I will tell you that. And it as good as Oregon State is at running the football, I think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to a situation where DJU has to make a play against that UCLA defense, and I think he's going to turn the ball over. Do I think it's going to be lower scoring? I don't necessarily think lower scoring. I think it's going to be somewhere. I don't know what the over-under is on that one, but I think it is going to be like a 27-20 kind of game. I see it being in the 45 to 50 point range. So Alex over-under is at 54. So, I mean, I will take the under there. But I see this being a one-possession game that I ultimately have UCLA winning. One thing that I want to make note of with Dante Moore being one of the best, freshman quarterbacks in the country. I'm really intrigued by, and I know we're so far away from this, but I just can't wait to see it. Malachi Nelson is the true freshman at USC, and I can't wait to the matchup when we start to see Dante Moore versus Malachi Nelson and see who's going to be the number one overall pick, come two more years from now after their seasons are over. So, but I love Dante Moore here. I think he takes care of business at Corvallis.
All right, I definitely hear what you're saying, and I love Dante Moore as well. And I think honestly, UCLA's offense is 1 year away from them being a real powerhouse with Dante Moore at the helm. However, last week, after 2 weeks ago they lost to Utah, only scoring 7 points on that Utah defense, and last week they gave Carson Steele, their running back, 30 carries, which kind of tells me what kind of offense they might be running against this Oregon State team since they had so much success last week against Washington State. I think Dante Moore needs to make a couple big throws this game, but I think ultimately the game really rests on Carson Steele's shoulders and see if he can put up some big numbers, get over 100 yards and a couple touchdowns, and then we're definitely looking at UCLA covering. So I definitely hear what you're saying, but my opinion is slightly different. I think Carson Steele is going to be the answer for today for UCLA.
All right, so I got Oregon State. Cottrell, you're taking UCLA outright?
I got UCLA outright.
And Alex, you're taking cover or you're taking them outright?
I'm taking them cover just because it's a ranked matchup. UCLA is on the road. You don't know who DJU is going to say. So I'm going to play it a little safer today and have UCLA covering that 3.5.
All right. Well, somebody's winning money then, I guess.
He likes to play the fence over there. Alex, he gives us the strong takes, and then when we need him to, we put the pressure on him. He's like, I'm gonna just ride the fence.
I'm gun shy. Last week I went all in. Last week on Maryland. Look what happened.
He's got no chips left. He's out of chips.
He didn't even go all in last week though, because I was asking him. I said, are we on upset alert, or are we just picking Maryland to cover? And he's like, Maryland covers, but I won't say they win, but I got Maryland covering. So I just want him to hop over one side of the fence here. Alex, who you got?
You know what?
Who you giving
UCLA money line.
Thank you.
Let's go.
There we go.
All right.
There we go.
Money line. There we go.
Hey,
all right.
There we go. Got to just get it out of him,
I like my pick even better.
Well,
now.
Chip Kelly, former Oregon coach, Dante Moore, former Oregon commit. Let's go UCLA.
Okay, I like it. See,
Alex just got strong armed into a loss. That's messed up.
Sometimes people don't want to jump over the cliff, so sometimes you got to just give them a little kick. That's all.
There's nothing wrong with being Switzerland, Alex. Plenty of money, great food, great scenery, pretty women. There's nothing wrong with being Switzerland.
Great cheese,
chocolate. There's nothing wrong with being see. There's nothing wrong with being Switzerland, Alex. Be Switzerland. Nothing wrong with being Switzerland. All right. No. All right. Here we go. We'll just get the elephant out of the room here. We got North Carolina, Drake May and Company hosting the 25th ranked Miami Hurricanes coming off of Neilgate. So Neilgate. Cottrell nailed this right on the head. Mario Cristobal, I think, has locked up the long withstanding Boner of the Year award already. He's coming in with a strong argument to close the season. I don't know if anybody's going to beat him. I got to go back over the other nominees for the rest of the year because there are a few, but I don't know. Again, I don't know, man. I don't know how you can be a coach, get paid that much money to run a major program. And even if you're an assistant coach, how somebody is not screaming in the headset to just kneel the effing ball. Like, I just don't get it. Like, everybody's like, he's like, I didn't want to end the game that way. What, with a win? You didn't want to end the game with a win? It's called victory formation for a reason, you dope. Like, my God, bro. Like, talk about submarining your own team. I can't imagine what that locker room was like. I'm sure everybody's seen the viral clip of the kids sitting on the bench saying, what the F are we doing, like twice in a row, practically crying. Listen, honest to God, dude, I hate Miami. I've never liked Miami, but, like, I feel bad for the kids. Like, if you get put in that position to win a game and be undefeated and continue your season, and have either ACC or an outside shot of getting into, like, the college football playoff, to lose it on something like that, like, that's crazy. Like, this isn't like some team was like, we lost on a 63-yard field goal as time expired, or we lost on a Hail Mary. Like, that stuff you just kind of have to accept because it's out of your control. To lose because your coach can't call the right freaking play when you're up with 30 seconds to go, I don't know how you get past that. I said it on Wednesday, and I'll say it again. I am super curious to see how that team comes out today. I think they're either deflated and they get absolutely boat raced by North Carolina, or they rally, and I think this is a really good football game. I don't think you get anything in between. I think they come out and either they're still in a fog from what happened, and they don't care. They're feeling sorry for themselves, and Drake May and company, especially with Walker back, puts it on them badly. Or I think they come out, with a fighting spirit and kind of say we're going to go win despite our dumbass coach. I hope we get the latter, but you never know. They're kids. So what do you guys think? I'll let you both talk about Neilgate because I know Cottrell's got strong opinions on it. I'm sure Alex does as well. If you have a brain and you're a college football fan, you have to have some kind of opinion on it. So you guys take it away. I don't care who goes first. Just everybody keep throwing dirt on Mario Cristobal. That's what we're here for at this point.
Alex, I'm sure you got a lot to say.
I'm just going to clap here. I'm just going to clap because Mario Cristobal, he deserves congratulations for his not first time, but second time making this mistake. I think it was 2017 when he was coaching Oregon. He made the same exact mistake against Stanford that cost us a game. So I'm probably one of the only people in the country that wasn't surprised about that boneheaded coaching decision. But plain and simple, God, I have so many things to say about Mario Cristobal just because I hate him so much. The way he abandoned Oregon to go to his alma mater in Miami, his absolute failure with them as a program has made my life so much better. But I do look, what is the morale like in that locker room? Just like Shiley said, we've all seen that clip of the kid going, "What the F are we doing? Like, what are you doing?" Like, even the defensive players are like, "How do you not kneel the ball there?" That's very, very obvious of what the play call there. I don't know if he's trying to pad the stats. I don't know what he was doing, but it was not a good coaching decision. And, can they rally around each other in this ACC showdown? I'm not sure to do it, but I look for Miami to try and turn North Carolina one-dimensional by eliminating that run game. North Carolina is averaging 174 yards. Miami's only allowing 58 yards per game. So something's going to have to give when it comes to the statistics there. You mentioned Drake May is really starting to play a lot better, but realistically, the only reason he's able to kind of throw and get more yards and get better stats is because that run game's opening things up for him. And until last week, with his 442-yard, 3-touchdown performance, Drake May hasn't done a lot to stand out for me. This is a great opportunity to continue building off of last week's performance. And, I want to see him kind of take care of the ball a lot better. Last season, in his first 10 games, he only had 4 interceptions. He's had 9. In the last 9 games, he's thrown 8 interceptions. Okay, so he's turning the ball over. He's being careless. He's not being responsible with the ball. And UCLA's run defense and their ability to penetrate that offensive line is the reason why I have Miami actually winning and beating North Carolina today to come back and bounce back from last week. Like I said, people are talking about how Miami should have won last week. They should be undefeated. They had 5 turnovers. Tyler Van Dyke played probably his worst game of the year with 3 interceptions. There is no way that pride of these kids is going to allow them to go into North Carolina and get their butt kicked. All right. Last week, they feel like they shouldn't have lost last week. They feel like they were robbed. They feel like Mario Cristobal took the game from them. They should be sitting at 5-0 right now, they feel like. And they're going to go against this North Carolina team. And they still have the ACC championship to play for. So I see them going into town, holding North Carolina under 100 rushing yards, which should be their game plan, turning them one-dimensional. And I don't know if Drake May – I think when it comes down to it, Drake May's going to throw an interception when the game's on the line. And I have Miami ultimately winning this game and covering that +3. But because you want me to be on one side of the ball, I got Miami winning.
All right, well, that's another non-Switzerland pick. Cottrell?
So first off, Mario Cristobal, I used him as my "you got to be kidding me" on Wednesday. Absolutely insane for that to happen. I don't know. Like, if you're a kid in that locker room, I don't know how you can trust that coach anymore. I also said it on the show there. There was almost a sense of like being in that situation. Like, if you're Tyler Van Dyke, like, I almost just accept the heat for calling an audible and just taking a knee there. Like, if you want to yell at me, you're not going to bench me. Like, I'm Tyler Van Dyke. I'm a big part of the reason why we're 5-0 at this point. So, I partially, it's a very small percent because I know you're not going to just go against your coach just out of nowhere, but somebody there has to know better and just know we kneel the football, we win the game. I don't care what your rationale is, winning the game the right way. I don't care if, the running back was struggling. Hey, you got next week to worry about. There's so many other things that would have been running through my head as a player on that team. So Mario Cristobal, absolutely insane for that behavior. As far as this game goes, you talk about Drake May not really impressing you so far this year. I almost think part of it is because he hasn't really had to. Like, they haven't had a close game so far this year. Numbers wise, I get it. He was close to 5,000 yards passing last year. I think this year now he hasn't even hit 2,000 yet. But I mean, he's taking care of business. And North Carolina is a team that's averaging like 35 points a game to this point. They haven't really had a tight one. We was expecting the first game of the year to be pretty tight against that South Carolina team. Wasn't the case. And I think this is their first game where, they're going up against a team that might push them a bit. I do think Drake May is going to show up. And the other thing that we haven't talked about yet is that Tez Walker is back for that North Carolina team. And the way that he looked last week, he had six catches, I forgot the exact yardage, but 6 catches. Drake May, obviously, they have that connection there already. I think that adds another dynamic to that North Carolina offense. They've been running the ball effectively as well. And so I think they take care of business at home this week against that Miami team. I think Miami's in a spot right now where, I know Bill mentioned that they can go one of two ways. I think they go the other way. I think ultimately they falter, and this Miami team is going to come out a little bit flat, and I think North Carolina is going to punch them right in the mouth. I do think they fight back a bit, but I got North Carolina winning this one. I think they're the better football team, and I think they keep that undefeated streak rolling.
I'm going to go with North Carolina as well. I think they're going to win at home. Kachal mentioned the Tez Walker thing. I mean, he hit the ground running like he hasn't missed a beat. I think part of that is he's been practicing with the team all year. Continue to practice even when he's ruled ineligible, or when he didn't get his waiver. Sorry. So I think that's all helped. I kind of agree with Cottrell. I think Drake May hasn't had to be the guy that put everything on his shoulders and be Mr. Flashy. I think they're a better team for it. I think they're a better team than they were last year. They're running the ball a little bit more, spreading the ball around a little more. Defense is better than it was last year. It's still not great, but it's better than it was. And I think they're winning football games different ways this year. It's not necessarily a shootout Drake May show. It's Drake May not playing complimentary football, but Drake May not taking chances and relying on other people around him to make plays. So I like North Carolina at home. I think this will I think you could see Miami really fold down the stretch if they lose this game. I think it could be really interesting because I think those kids are going to be. It's going to be really hard for those kids to get away from what could have been, and that is not an attitude you want your locker room to have in the middle of October with the games they have coming down the stretch. So I'm going to go Miami. I'm going to go North Carolina at home. I just think they're the better football team, and I think they're the better frame of mind. So we got left
Co-Main.
Here we go. I'm not going to go into this one too much because I'm picking this one. USC Caleb Williams coming to town. Big news that kind of leaked kind of late here. Zachariah Branch is considered a game time decision. A couple other reports have come out saying that they don't think he's going to play. That's a big deal. Notre Dame at home. Again, we just talked about it with the Pac-12 and other teams coming off a brutal stretch of games. They kind of get home, get some home cooking, sleep in their own beds all week. How do they rally? What is I'm really curious to see how they play for Marcus Freeman tonight. I really am. Because like I said earlier in the show, I think if they end up with 4 or 5 losses this year, I think that coaching seat's a lot hotter than people would like to admit it is. I think he got a pass with a lot of stuff last year. Obviously, losing that Ohio State team last year was, that wasn't going to cause them any harm as good as that team was, and it was away. I think the way they lost to them this year, and then going to Louisville and get your butt kicked, USC comes in and romps you tonight. I think it's a problem, especially with what they have left on their schedule. They still have Clemson. They still have Duke. Neither one of those games are going to be pushovers. So curious to see how Hartman responds. I think Estime might have 45 carries tonight. I'm hoping. If I know myself, Cottrell probably agrees. I would hope you learned from your lesson last week. It would be early and often for me against that USC defense. But like I said, I'm not going to give my pick because I'm picking it. I'll let you guys break this game down for me. Tell everybody what they need to know and what you guys are looking for and what you think is going to happen.
Well, I can go first here because I know Alex, you're chomping at the bit to go first on the next game. So I'll take it here. I'll keep it short and sweet here. Bill, you mentioned Zachariah Branch probably not going to play tonight. I actually don't think that has as big of an impact as a lot of people are saying it does, only because he hasn't played the last couple of games as well. So I think USC has enough offensively. Brandon Weiss has been phenomenal. Taj Washington is a great receiver as well. Obviously, it will definitely help to add an explosive player like Branch back into the fold, but I don't think that's going to be the difference maker in this one. I ultimately think it's going to be Notre Dame, and I think defensively it's going to be how their corners hold up and how that defensive line holds up against Caleb Williams. You cannot allow Caleb Williams to get outside the pocket and extend plays with his feet and, just beat up on broken coverage on the back end. If those Notre Dame corners are having success, it's because the defensive line is making Caleb Williams get the ball within 3 to 4 seconds. You can't have plays go on for 7, 8 seconds because those receivers on the back end are just too good. Brandon Rice is going to have a field day if, it's just Caleb Williams running all over the field and making plays with his legs. I do think that Notre Dame will run the ball a lot more efficiently this week, and I think Estime is going to be a big part of that. You mentioned that USC, their defense has not been anything close to stellar so far this year. They've let any and everybody pretty much run the ball effectively on them and put up points. And so a Notre Dame team that's been struggling pretty much, the past 3 weeks offensively, I think this is a game where they catch their stride, and I think they're going to beat a USC team that's pretty much been begging to be beat for the last couple of weeks. So I got Notre Dame ultimately winning this game. I think Caleb has a good one, but I don't think that Notre Dame allows Caleb Williams to go off for 4 or 5 touchdowns in this one. I think this is the game that's going to be a little bit of the more lower scoring one. I can see it being like a 24-21 win for Notre Dame. Just one of those kind of ugly gut-out wins, especially with the weather being the way it is right now in the Midwest.
Honestly, that's a great call. I see this game going 2 types of ways. I checked the weather earlier. It looks like it's going to be dry for game time. However, if that does change and the conditions do become wet, Notre Dame's going to run the ball down USC's throat, and Notre Dame's going to win this game. The ball, or if the conditions do stay dry and Caleb Williams is able to throw the ball effectively, I think Caleb Williams and USC win in a shootout. So it's really kind of the weather's going to play a huge factor on this game. I mean, USC's coaches were spraying water hoses on their players catching kicks this week just to get them prepared for the possibility of playing in the rain. It was super funny to watch that clip, by the way. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It's hilarious.
Great idea, though.
Right? If y'all remember last week, I said I had lost faith in Sam Hartman. I mentioned it earlier. In the last 3 games, he has accounted for more turnovers than touchdowns. Mentioned that earlier, and that's something I'm going to be harping on during this breakdown. But what better way to get out of a slump than facing the 79th ranked defense in the country? Notre Dame needs some offense. They also need to get back to running the ball control, and a whole lot of Audric Estime. Only 20 yards last week, only 10 carries. He has over 100 carries this season, and he only has 10 carries in your second loss of the year. You got to get out. You got to get back to your run game, ground and pound, control the clock, control the line of scrimmage. On the other side, it's Caleb Williams versus that Notre Dame defense. Notre Dame is 3rd in pass defense, only allowing 146 yards per game. So if the conditions are drier, I look for Caleb Williams to try to pick apart that secondary of Notre Dame, and I don't know if he's going to be able to do it. Last week, he was able to kind of use his legs, extend plays, and had 3 rushing touchdowns. I expect him to continue kind of using those legs today and extending plays. And Will Zachariah Branch make his return? We've been talking about it. He warmed up last week but was unable to play. That's a huge factor, a huge playmaker. I would put him on the same level as Travis Hunter with Colorado. Without him being in the lineup, that kind of impact in the game. So like I said, I see this game going one or two ways, and I'm really interested to see kind of what the weather situation looks like. And I had Chinese food for dinner the other night, and I got the fortune cookie right here. And it tells me to listen to these next few days to your friends to get answers that you seek. And personally, you guys gave me no help. I was hoping you guys would give me something that would help me make this decision of what's going to happen. Honestly, this game is a huge toss-up because there's so many variables. Will USC's pass offense be able to penetrate Notre Dame's pass defense? Is Audric Estime going to go off for 200 yards, and Notre Dame is going to score the most points they've had in 3 weeks? I mean, this game is so up in the air. I'm excited to watch it. Ultimately, I do have this game going. I am banking on it being a wet weather game. So for my pick of this game, I'm taking the under because honestly, this game is too much in the air and I don't know who's going to win it. So it'll be fun to watch.
All right.
Wait.
Oh, I feel like we have a Switzerland flag on the play. I feel like that's where we're going.
Alex.
All right, fine. Here we go.
Alex, come on.
Look, man, this game, okay, if I'm looking at the numbers, I'm looking at the stats, and I'm going to pick USC to beat Notre Dame and ultimately demoralize Sam Hartman's season. You did mention that Freeman might be on the hot seat if they lose 3 or 4 games or 4 or 5 games this year. I don't quite think he's on the hot seat till next year due to the fact he did just land 2 of the best QB recruits for next year. So his recruiting class coming in is a really high level. I don't think they're going to get rid of him because of a bad season this year with the future looking so bright for the Notre Dame program. But ultimately, I'm making this pick because I want USC undefeated for when Oregon trounces them. So USC with the win.
Now, Alex, was that so hard? Don't you feel a lot better now that you said it? Don't you feel a lot better?
It was.
I see the relief off your shoulders. I see it.
My picks have not been great lately, so I'm trying to play it a little safe here. But yes, no, I do have USC taking care of Notre Dame. This is the 4th game in a row they played a ranked opponent. I mean, Bill's mentioned this 3 or 4 times on this show in the 8 episodes that when you play back-to-back games against tough ranked opponents, that really beats you down morally, physically, and I think that USC is just ready to go. They're well prepared. They know what's on the line tonight, and I think that the script is out to beat Notre Dame, and hopefully USC's defense can step up and help me look good.
All right. I will give my pick here in a couple minutes, but first, we got to talk about the main event. The number 8 Oregon Ducks going into Spokane, Washington to play the number 7 Washington Huskies. Major Pac-12 implications. Major national title implications. Bo Nix versus Michael Penix Jr. The Ducks versus the Huskies. Alex, I will let you go first here for obvious reasons. I'm going to go second, and I'm going to let Cottrell go third here because I'm feeling a swerve coming here. But Alex, I mean, I know who you're picking, so let's put it that way. I know who you're picking. Tell us why.
So I'm picking Washington? No, I'm just kidding.
You pick Washington, that would be the swerve. You pick Washington.
Honestly, I wasn't expecting a swerve or WWE off the top rope switch from Cottrell until now. So now I'm a little bit weary. But plain and simple, Oregon and Georgia. What do those 2 teams have in common, you may be asking? They're the only 2 teams in the country with a top 10 defense and offense. Oregon and Georgia. So what's that say? That tells me that Dan Lanning is bringing that SEC defensive mindset out west. And we saw how well the Oregon defense performed against a one-trick pony in Colorado, holding Shedeur Sanders under 200 yards passing. I'm not comparing Shedeur Sanders to Michael Penix Jr. I'm just saying that type of offense that's one-dimensional, big plays, quick screens, big yards after catch offense, we were able to hold him under 200 yards passing. Michael Penix obviously is the front runner for Heisman hopeful this year. He's my Heisman pick for the year. You guys tell me if Michael Penix has a career game, Washington wins. I'm going to have my cake and eat it too. I think Michael Penix is going to have a huge game against Oregon's secondary just because he is as good as he is. But I do think the Oregon defense is going to come up with a few stops that's going to keep him. Maybe 1 or 2 turnovers is going to be the difference in this game. But Washington's pass defense is ranked 93rd in yards per game allowed. And on offense, like I just said, they're one-dimensional. They're ranked 104th in yards per game running. So all Oregon has to do is drop back an extra defender, play the pass, allow those short dump passes and the inside handoffs that Washington likes to do to kind of get a little bit better field position. And they're going to kind of own this game. Michael Penix has 2,000 yards passing, 16 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. He has only been sacked 6 times in 5 games. What does that mean? That just means that Oregon's going to need to penetrate the offensive line, get him out of rhythm, force him out of the pocket. He's not a huge runner, and Bucky Irving needs to take advantage of that front 7 of Washington, and he needs to go off. They are averaging 227 yards per game, but he hasn't had to play a full game. I think today is the first time that Bucky Irving plays from start to finish. Last year when they lost this game, Oregon had over 350 yards rushing, and I expect them to do the same today, control the clock. And Bo Nix is completing 80% of his passes. All right. He only has 1 interception, and I expect him to keep making high percentage throws, relying on the run to control the clock and get themselves in second and short situations. And ultimately, I have Oregon winning this game. I know they're underdogs, but I have this game going as a 49-28, 21-point Oregon Duck win. The difference between the defenses is too big and too vast for Washington to keep up with Oregon's offense. Oregon's going to get 2 or 3 stops to start the game off, going up 14-0 in the first quarter, and the rest is history. That's how I see it. But Dan Lanning has got this Oregon Duck team defensively ready and defensively sound. There's a reason they're top 10 in the country in defense, and we haven't seen a defense this good in Oregon since 2001, and I expect them to really show out today and put their name on the map. Let's see what happens.
Can you give me that score prediction one more time?
49-28, 21-point win, Oregon Ducks.
All right. Well, I'm going to make my pick from here on Earth.
Hey, you know what, Bill? When you see a 21-point Oregon Duck win today at 3:30 your time, and you see the Bo Nix has got 3 touchdown passes, 86 completion percentage, and Bucky Irving has 185 rushing yards for 3 TDs, we're gonna have a nice little conversation in the group chat.
Alex is standing on business.
How was that for taking a stand, Cottrell?
Hey, I like it.
Cold.
I've been pushing for it, I just had to keep pushing you. I'm glad we got here, I love it.
So, some guys got to be coached hard, it's sometimes happens. So I'm going to stay with what I said on Wednesday, and I don't feel any different today than I did on Wednesday. To me, I think the offenses are very comparable. I think they both have great quarterbacks, experienced quarterbacks that are too old to be in college football. I like Oregon's running game better, and I like their defense better. I said from the get-go, I think they're the better all-around football team. I think Michael Penix Jr. is more than capable of stealing this game himself because he's had that type of year. I think the home field advantage, it's palpable. It factors in. Anytime you play one of these games, you want to play at home, and it's for a reason. I don't think Husky Stadium is maybe the most intimidating place to go play or the loudest, but that's going to be 95%, if not more, Husky fans tonight. They're going to be ready. That being said, I'm going to stick with what I picked on Wednesday. I'm taking the Oregon Ducks. I think they're the better football team. I like their defense. I don't like it as much as Alex likes it. I promise you that. But I think when push comes to shove, if I have to lean on either one of those defenses to get a stop, I'll take Oregon's, and I think it is. I think people want to point to Michael Penix Jr. too much, and I think that's discrediting what Bo Nix has done, and I say that because Washington is very reliant on the big play per se, and in a big game like that, I don't want to have to rely on somebody throwing the ball 40 yards downfield all the time to score. I think if Oregon could stay in this game early and play their game plan and methodically move the ball down the field, run the ball with Bucky, and run play action off of that, Alex gave you all the stats. Washington's defense is not good. They are a better, more efficient version of kind of Colorado and USC. They're looking to outscore people. Arizona's got a decent defense, and Arizona, gave them a fight. They just kind of ran out of gas. So I'm going with Oregon. I think Oregon wins a close game. I think it's a great game. I think the game lives up to its billing. I really do. I don't think either team is winning by 21 points. I will say that. And but I'm going to go with the Ducks. And think Bo Nix can pull one out. So I'm going Oregon.
So I love what you guys are telling me right now. I think Bo Nix has had a incredible year so far. I think, if you want to be successful on the road, it's going to come down to having that rushing attack. And Bucky Irvin is more than capable of providing that for those Oregon Ducks. Oregon has looked great defensively so far. And, holding Shedeur Sanders to what they did and holding that Colorado team to only 6 points is impressive. However, Michael Penix Jr. is a different animal. Rome Odunze, different animal. Xavier Worthy is good. Rome Odunze is a lot better. Jalen Polk being on the other side for Michael Penix Jr., another great weapon. These are two guys who are going to be first or second round picks, respectively. And, as great as Oregon's defense has been, I got Michael Penix Jr. making the bigger plays in this one. I think Bo Nix goes up to Husky Stadium. I think he turns the ball over in a spot that he hasn't done all season. I got the Huskies pulling out a tight one. I got to be in a high-scoring game. Oregon's defense, I think, as great as they are, Michael Penix Jr. is putting up points at home. So I got the Huskies winning this one. We got 38-37 in a barn burner. Michael Penix Jr., I think he's gonna submit his stamp on that Heisman campaign. And we got the Oregon Ducks. We got that Block O moving over to the Pretender side next week.
Man came out to the crowd with his Oregon Duck shirt on to get the cheap pop from the home crowd. Only to close the show with a goddamn heel turn. I told you it was coming. Justin thought it was going to be me. It wasn't going to be me. You watched the show Wednesday, you knew it wasn't going to be me.
Look,
I feel like right now? I feel like Lee Corso. Give me the headset. Yeah.
Here's what I'm going to say. All right, I know we got to wrap this up because we got games starting in 10 minutes. Washington has allowed 56 points in the last two games combined to Arizona and Cal. Oregon has allowed 12.
Alex is the jilted girlfriend right now. He's
no, this is just payback. Oh, control that. He's like, whatever, guys, I'm out of here. He's like, you know what?
That's how you close the show with a heel turn. You just leave.
So many times that I deserve that. I deserved that because I've been picking against Ohio State the last couple of weeks. So
you'll have your chance. You'll have your chance next week. So I mean, if you want, go out and buy an Ohio State jersey, and then you can come on the show and pick Penn State.
Turn heel.
Heel turn. Close the show.
I'm gonna RKO that Ohio State jersey. All right, let's get to picks, boys.
We gotta get to pick them. We do gotta roll. We got 10 minutes before kickoff. So.
All right, let me get the standings pulled up here shortly. I don't know why it just booted me out of there, but
it's because it didn't like your pick.
I guess not. All right, let's see where we got here.
It's just gonna be a fun show.
If it ever gets there. There we go.
If Oregon wins this football game today, I promise you that.
So much fun! I can't wait.
Slim lead for me. It's actually even slimmer now. So I will go through mine first. I'll let Cottrell go second, and I'll let I Black finish up here. First game I'm going to take Colorado minus 10.5 against oh, wait. No, I'm not. I already have a goddamn loss this week because goddamn Colorado Buffaloes suck. I'm never picking them again. So I'm 0-1 already. So here we go. My next pick. USC at Notre Dame minus 2.5. Give me the Fighting Irish. At home, I think they play better. USC hasn't stopped anybody. You've heard the term already numerous times this show. They're begging to lose. They're begging to get beat. I think they get their L tonight. I really do. On the road, I think Zachariah Branch not playing matters. I think Notre Dame gets enough stops on on defense. And if you want to get your confidence back in your offense, go play that USC defense. Notre Dame at home -2.5. I'll take the Fighting Irish and the points. My third pick, another get-right game. We talked about it, earlier in the show briefly. Give me Kentucky -3.5 at home against Missouri. I think Ray Davis and company get back on track. They go home. They're still playing for something. I know they have one loss, but I mean, if Georgia slips up somewhere or something like that, they got a shot. So, and Missouri's got to travel on the road. They do not play as well away as they do at home. So I think Kentucky gets back on track. They'll be able to run the ball against Missouri, and obviously Missouri's offense isn't as explosive as Georgia, or their defense is nowhere near as good. So I will take Kentucky -3.5 at home against Missouri. My super dog, I like this a little bit better than even when I picked it Wednesday, now that the rumors are Campbell's not going to play. So I got Syracuse +17.5 at Florida State. I don't think Florida State's ever in any danger of losing the game, but I think I can pick up some super dog points here. So I will go Syracuse +17.5. They've played pretty well all year. Their defense struggles at times, but Florida State gets in funks as well. So could be a blowout. Maybe I pick up some super dog picks. Who knows? But those are my picks for the week.
All right, and then my super dog picks of the week here. I'll run through them pretty quickly here. First pick, piggyback it off of upset alert. I like Pitt +7.5 at home versus Louisville. I think they keep that game tight, and if Louisville wins, I think it's one of those. It comes down last second. Maybe they kick a field goal. Maybe they have the go-ahead drive at the end of the game. But I like Pitt to cover that 7.5 at home. Next one, going to the Sun Belt here. We talked about Air Force being an undefeated team right now that no one's talking about. I got James Madison -5.5 at home versus Georgia Southern. James Madison is another team that no one's really talking about right now. And, they are really taking care of business offensively. And I think against that Georgia Southern team and them being at home, I think James Madison is going to put it on them. And I expect them to cover that 5.5 easy at home. My last game here, I like the under 55 UMass at Penn State. I think that's a game where Penn State is going to have full control of that one. I don't even know if UMass even scores in that game. I think Penn State's defense is phenomenal, and 55 is a high number if you only got one team scoring. And I also think in that game, you're going to have James Franklin pull, Aller and company pretty early in that one because they have a huge matchup next week against Ohio State. So I like the under 55 there. And I'm just going to double dip in that game a little bit because with my super dog, I got UMass +41.5 at Penn State as well. Again, if the starters at Penn State aren't playing for the entire game, I think those 2s and 3s going up against UMass's 1s are going to struggle to put up some points on the board. So I could see that game ending like a 38-0, maybe 35-0, somewhere along the lines of that. And so I'm playing it safe this week, trying to just pick up some more super dog points, keep the engine rolling there. But those are my picks for the week.
All right. Well, I am going to stay clear of the Oregon-Washington game for my pick'em segment just because that's bad luck. So I'm not going to pick that one. But here's what I do have going into today. It went from +2 last night went from -2 to -1 today. I do have Florida upsetting South Carolina. They're +1 right now, but I am taking Florida money line with a +1 spread. Might as well take the money line. But I ultimately, like I said, Florida's only allowing 166 passing yards a game, and South Carolina's primary form of offense is the passing game. I think Florida's biggest struggle this year against Kentucky was against that heavy run attack. I think they're going to dominate the line of scrimmage, and South Carolina's not going to get a lot rolling. Florida +1. I also have Wake Forest +1.5 at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's run defense is absolutely atrocious, and Wake Forest is averaging 195 yards rushing per game. And I think that's ultimately going to be the difference. Virginia Tech, like I said, not a strong team this year. And then I do have Wisconsin as -9 over Iowa. If Cade McNamara was playing, I would say this game would be different. Earlier this year, I was very high on Iowa and having them coming out of the Big Ten. But because of the loss of Cade McNamara, I do have Wisconsin ultimately winning this game. They said it's a 9.5 or 9-point spread now. I do have Wisconsin covering that. Wisconsin, Iowa's defense is not as it has been the last few years. They're allowing 131 rushing yards per game, and Wisconsin's averaging 204 respectively. So I think Wisconsin's going to run all over them. So again, Florida +1, Wake Forest +1.5, and Wisconsin -9. And then for my super dog, I'm going to agree with Shally here and go Syracuse, which is now +19.5 against Florida State today. I expect them to come out firing on all cylinders after the blowout last week to North Carolina and have a little bit more of a respectable game.
All right. That is week 7, episode 8 in the books. Any closing thoughts or anything? Any final points like to be made for 12 o'clock kickoff start here?
I'm just saying it now. Don't blow the group chat up. Ohio State's traveling to Purdue. I know Purdue, we just going to Purdue for whatever reason, struggle to go there. Tyler Trent, last time we went up there, they beat us. Tyler Trent, the feel-good story all over ESPN. When they come out struggling in the first quarter, I don't need all the messages following through because they're going to take care of business today. But I'm just letting you know they're gonna start off slow against Purdue.
It's always weird that like all the Big Ten teams have like a 1 or 2 places when they go, no matter how big the disparity is between the two teams, like they never play well. It's always so weird to me. Like you guys have Purdue, I'm trying to think, like Penn State. Penn State always struggles when they play Minnesota. Like it's weird. It's weird how it always works out that way, but it's fun. So Alex, you got anything left? I know you got a big day, buddy.
I got a big day. I got to get mentally ready. I got to exfoliate my skin. I got to get the nachos ready. Here we go. No, honestly, today's going to be a great day of football. I'm glad we have some ranked matchups at different times of the day. But other than that, we'll see you next week. And Cottrell, I expect some respect and an apology like I did to you today next week.
The show could be spicy next week. The show could be spicy if anything happens. Just a little bit peek ahead. I just looked at the schedule. Next week's schedule is borderline better than this one. You got Michigan State, Duke, Florida State, Clemson, Miami, Penn State, Ohio State, obviously, Washington State, Oregon, Tennessee, Alabama. We got another full slate next week. So we're gonna get out of here. Like I said, we will try to be done by 12 for 12 o'clock kicks. I'm gonna go watch Michigan smash Indiana, hopefully. And before we go, I got to give my man Justin Louder a shout out today. He's got to have at least 100 comments in the chat right now. So I appreciate you. Yeah, I appreciate you waking up early with us, buddy, and coming in here and keeping us company and and talking with us. So we appreciate the love, and we will see everybody here next week. So have a great day, watch the great games, and see you.